Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Author Naked. Today, I have Marcy McCreary. Okay, close our could. So, hey, thanks for stopping by Author Naked today. And, introduce yourself and let's get jump right into Novel 1 of Novel 2, The Dry. So, Dry, the second, the German for corner, Dry is the 3. So, right, take a look.
So hi, my name is Marcy McCreary, and I am the author of the Ford Family Mystery Series. And as Travis just said, there are 3 books in this series. The first one is called The Disappearance of Trudy Solomon, the second, The Murder of Madison Garcia, and the third book comes out today, August 13th, and it's called The Summer of Love and Death.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. I like it there right now.
Well, the book features a father-daughter detective team. So she's an active detective in Monticello, New York, and he's a retired detective. And the books take place in Monticello. So as I rolled into the third book and trying to think of sort of how to utilize the area, because it is a very historical area, not just because of the hotels that were there, but because that is where Woodstock took place in Bethel, New York. So Bethel, New York was 9 miles down the road from Monticello. It's where that big traffic jam took place. And I thought, how cool would it be to incorporate the historical events of 1969? Because it's not just Woodstock. You've got the Walk on the Moon that summer. The Mets winning the World Series. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff.
That is like one for like that.
Right, I got that in the book too. So really, all of these, and the Vietnam War, and the protests, and all of that is unfolding in 1969. And Detective Will Ford is the right age to have been a young detective at that time. So I thought, okay, let's do a dual timeline, 1969 and 2019, 50 years on the 50th anniversary of Woodstock. And actually, on August 15th is the 55th anniversary of Woodstock. And I thought it would just be a really great way to utilize the setting in a different way than I have done for my other novels.
That's pretty cool. I used to live in New York. So that's in that I had the 17th and I think we moved. I think we moved in 1968 or 1969 to California. So about I was in the Air Force, so it was definitely well, that's always cool. So,
Altamont was that year in California. I mean, there's still a big music scene there. The Rolling Stones, the Hell Angels, the
Jimmy Shelter. Jimmy Shelter, the movie came from that.
The documentary that came out of that,
yeah, that was great. I remember watching that. Yeah, early off, taking the whole 69. So yeah, I remember watching that Jimmy Shelter. No, definitely.
Yeah,
so,
and that concert and Woodstock were complete opposites, and I bring a lot of that into my novel. One of the things that I really wanted to do with this novel is find somebody in law enforcement who was there, because I bring a lot of law enforcement logistics into the novel. And I was at BoucherCon, and I spoke to an author who put me in touch with Nick Chiarkis, who's ex-NYPD, who volunteered for the Peace Force at Woodstock. And we spoke at length about how law enforcement worked. And he gave me sort of just like some really fun anecdotes that happened to him and worked those into the story. So it's really nice to have a primary source for these novels, because I think so many times when you do historical, and it's funny that 50 years ago is now historical, but historical novels, quite a primary
people call me old.
I was 6 years old in 1969. Yeah, it's like it's now considered historical. So to find people that, it's one thing to find somebody who was at Woodstock, the 500,000 people showed up there, but to find one of the 250 NYPD volunteer cops that were there, I thought that was pretty fateful. Like that was kids. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, dude, you had to do a lot of research on Woodstock, 1969. Yes, to the place because they hadn't had a reunion just recently, like a Woodstock, another.
They try to do them like every milestone, and nothing is going to replicate or duplicate the original, right? I mean, they do bring bands together, but I think that sort of just the way that it materialized in 1969, being at Woodstock, being so last minute, almost worked to their
It was
advantage.
very organic. It was very organic.
It became very organic, and there were moments when it could have been very scary. But I think that, from what I have found out, is that there were only a handful of deaths. Two of them were overdoses, one from a tractor running over somebody in a sleeping bag. But for the most part, it was a very safe concert. It was not "Give Me Shelter." It was.
The only old people stayed down and decided to,
yeah,
practical heads.
just doing things up.
Well, I choked away the bodyguards for the
Yeah, they were
guards for
supposed to be the
both sides.
bodyguards. And,
Yeah.
and at Woodstock, the organizers somehow got into a deal with the lead singer of Wavy Gravy. Wavy Gravy, who was performing there, and he had his hog farmers from New Mexico come and keep the peace. And they were called the Please Force, because he would get up on stage and say, please don't do this, and please do this, and please help your neighbor, and please. And they became the Please Force. You had a few hundred of them, and then you had the Peace Force, which was NYPD volunteer. They volunteered $50 a day and food. And the reason that the New York commissioner pulled out of Woodstock officially was because he got wind of these hog farmers, and he was just really pissed off about it. He was just like, well, that's just not going to work.
Love it.
And it was already in motion. So, little back room conversations, and he agreed to allow anybody who wants to volunteer to volunteer. And Nick Tiark has volunteered.
We're fucking piss somebody off. We're not getting a little preacher like really roll around blood stuff. You're probably eating the wall didn't matter.
Right. And then, as everybody knows, the concert was supposed to start Friday, but people started showing up on Wednesday. And by Wednesday, Thursday, they were still constructing the stage and the ticket booth and the fencing. And they had to decide at that point, are they going to finish the stage, or are they going to finish, the entry point? And they decided to go with the stage. And that is why when all these people appeared, the ticket booth wasn't really functional and there was no fencing. And so, 450,000 people just, ended up on Yasmin's farm.
And let's have folks I've been posting to you about how the man is period. Like 1969 was a very turbulent year in America. Like really talking about Vietnam War or protesting and all that sort of things. But we had the good things. We had the movement out of it. Like there were a lot of good things happening in the country. Are there any characters in the book that were there?
Yeah,
1969.
So it's a dual timeline narrative. So it goes back and forth from Susan Ford. So the novel opens where she is called to the scene of a murder at a summer stock theater, and they are putting on Murder on the Orient Express. So there's a sort of like humming Agatha Christie vibe running through the novel with a running joke. They all did it, but you have to read the So she's called to this murder of this guy, and the scene is pretty gruesome. This is no cozy, right? So it's a pretty intense MO that they're really thrown by it. And anyway, so she goes and she meets her dad later, and they actually are meeting at the Woodstock Monument because her boyfriend is having a little celebration there. His parents got married at Woodstock. That's fiction.
I think a lot of people just didn't realize it.
Exactly. Right. There were traveling ministers there doing that.
Of course.
Right? And actually there were no births at Woodstock, at least none that were registered. So
later.
Rumors of that, but actually I didn't find any evidence of that. So she tells her dad about this murder, she describes it. He's like finishing her sentences, and she's like, what? Did you hear about this? And he goes, no. You are describing the MO of a serial killer case. My first case as a detective that I worked in 1969. And the connections to Woodstock become apparent. So as she starts the investigation, every time she triggers his memory about something, we go back in time because I wanted the reader to be in his reality. I didn't want him just telling Susan what happened or what he remembers. I actually wanted to do a true dual timeline where he becomes you're in his first person point of view in his chapters. I tried it as third person. It worked better as first person. And so that the reader is in those scenes. So there's scenes in the hotel area, in the bungalow areas around the hotels at that time. There's Woodstock scenes. There's references to the Walk on the Moon and to the Miracle Mats and other things that were happening in 1969, the protests. Yeah.
This is the end forward from the first, second, and third person perspective. The diary is the first person, the father and son, or the second, third person, and then the other characters. That type of dual time bomb.
I enjoy writing first person because then I step into the character, I'm in that character, and I know that the only point of view I can have is that character, but she has to react to all of the people around her.
Exactly.
And I put Will's into third person at first and worked with my editor on deciding whether we should rewrite those chapters in first person. And in the end, we did. It just, again, it felt like it put the reader in Will's shoes, and Will never had a point of view until this novel. So it was a lot of fun writing him as a young character because he's in his 70s in the first two novels. And in this novel, although he is in his 70s in the 2019 version, chapters, he is transported back to being in his late 20s in the 1969 chapter. So that was a lot of fun to sort of like, I don't know, create his worldview from those experiences in 1969 that you see later on in, when he's an older adult.
Yeah, that's actually what that connection to a lot of the rotational historical fiction or film fiction, and then rattle back to that time of back from that today of something's happening in the first scene. All the history his types of beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, in my first two novels, in the first novel, The Disappearance of Trudy Solomon, the incident that gets the mystery rolling is the finding a woman who disappeared in the mid-70s, but she's in a memory care facility and she can't tell the detective what happened to her. And that is a true story. So Monticello, New York, a woman went missing. She worked at the Concord Hotel in the mid-70s. Her name was Flora Stevens, and they never found out what happened to her. And then in 2017 or 2016, I read an article in the Boston Globe where they had found remains on the side of the road, and they assumed it was Flora Stevens. And a detective decided to put her social security number in the system, and he got a ping at a memory care facility in Lowell, Massachusetts, and he went out there and he confirmed that it was this missing woman. So I get in touch with the Monticello Police Department. So what happened? What happened to this woman? And what happened to the remains on the side of the road? Well, they don't have the resources to figure out what happened to this woman. She was alive and well, and she had dementia. And as far as the remains, it was a different jurisdiction. It was a different county. I think it was Ulster County, not Sullivan County. So the story just died on the vine, but I couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, and it gave me the seed for the original story, which was, what if the detective who found, and I changed her name from Flora Stevens to Trudy Solomon, what if this one, the detective finds Trudy Solomon, but it was her father's case when the woman went missing. And he's retired. And so she brings him on as a consultant to figure out what happened to her in those ensuing years, because they both suspect, foul play of some sort. And of course, they've run across an entire story of murder and mayhem. And so it involves, so it's not a dual timeline, but it harkens back. There's a lot of scenes that harken back to the 1970s era of that area. So that's how I brought that.
Those 40 years or whatever,
Well, I fictionalized it because I just couldn't let it go. Like, it was one of those things.
I think that.
I was just like, okay, well, if they're not going to tell me what happened to her, I'm just going to make it up, right?
Of course.
We're writing fiction. And also to bring in the the skeletal remains. Like, how does that fit into the story? So I also wanted to make that part of the story.
Sure.
So the inciting incident starts off exactly the way that I read it in the Boston Globe, but I made my characters a father-daughter detective team, and sort of that brings in sort of like baggage. I mean, like family baggage. I mean, you might have a really good relationship with your dad, but he's still your dad. And there are just things, and there are things that happened to Susan in the mid 70s that it was not a good time in her life. She was a teenager and her parents got divorced and her grandfather died. And I mean, all this, and her mom's an alcoholic and all these bad things are happening around her. And here she is going, oh my God, I have to relive a case, that harkens back to the worst time of my life. And so that's sort of, you begin to sort of understand the family dynamics as this case plays out.
That's interesting. And that's the first novel that sets off the series of novels. And then you got the second one. Is there going to be a fourth, or is it just a 3-book series?
So this was never meant to be a series. So the book comes out, or right before the book came out, I was actually working on another book, and I get a review in Publishers Weekly that says an enticing series launch. Detective Susan Ford is a strong protagonist who can carry a series. And my publisher was like, "Is this a series?" I'm like, I guess it is now.
Oh my God.
So I put aside what I was writing, and I jumped into, and I actually had an idea. That was kind of, I was mulling around anyway. So that was the murder of Madison Garcia. And so that again, there's a murder of a young woman, and her father is friends with her grandfather. So that's the connection. In this case, in this scenario, he wants to be involved, but she doesn't want him involved because he's close to the family. So in the first where he was invited onto the case, in this one, he's an unwanted, unwelcome presence on her case. But he's good at, getting her to to reveal what's going on, and he does help her out. And so that was, and in the Summer of Love and Death, obviously because the case is so similar to his case in 1969, he is brought on again to help. Like they see the value in bringing him on as a consultant to help her.
I was writing
dynamic better. Yeah.
I was writing a third book in series, but about 50,000 words in, and stopped after I had an idea for 104. It stopped and put 100% of my time into writing that.
It happens. I mean, I think so. You asked me if like the series is going to continue. I love my characters, but I really had another idea kicking around, and it's not even the book that I was writing when I was pulled off to write the second book in the series. Totally different idea, and I just wanted to run with that and see where it goes. And if there are readers who want more of the Ford family, series, and I can think of something, but I really need to think of a really good plot and character arc before I get started. So I'm a pantser, but I still need to, the thing that I want to get in my head is like, I really need a great inciting incident. I need to understand the character arc, in what way are they going to change or grow? So I just want to know those two things before I get going. Until I get that, I'm not going to start a book. So especially because I have all these other ideas rattling around in my head. So I've just finished a completely different novel. It's called Dirty Water, which is an homage to the Standells song Dirty Water, which is reference to the Charles River in Boston. So I'm sort of like the Thursday Murder Club meets Rizzoli and Isles. So it's 4 retired detectives on a cold case.
All right. And then, so you dominantly do the detective type novels, the criminal type novels. That's like your forte, where you just do that genre.
I do. I think because I grew up reading those novels. Like I read a lot, and I read across genre. But I would say if I read, let's say I read 10 books, 7 of them will be in the mystery crime thriller, and 3 I do love literary fiction. I love character driven fiction.
Right.
And I like family fiction, women's fiction, family fiction, although I haven't read a lot of it lately. But crime, there's just so many categories of crime I love. I mean, I love, kind of the hard-boiled crime. I mean, I love Sean Cosby. My husband is a novelist. He wrote years ago, here I have it. I have it somewhere. He wrote this novel called The Minus Man. It was made into a movie. He wrote this in the early 90s, and then he went back to work. Like, he kind of wrote this, and I mean, it was blurred by Anne Rice and John Banville. He writes literary fiction, and unfortunately, he has dementia. And
oh no, my mom is terrible.
It's terrible. And 3 years ago, he finished a novel, but he couldn't. This is when the trouble started. When I started realizing something was off, he was having a hard time editing it. Like, he got feedback from agents and editors as to what he needs to, the prescription for the book.
Sure.
And just couldn't wrap his head around it. And he not only is he an author, but he is an editor himself, right? So he definitely knows what he's doing, and he couldn't sort it out. So in the ensuing years, I mean, I was at writers' conferences, and I ended up hiring John Didakis, who's an editor and ghostwriter, to not a single word has been changed in his new novel. But it's been edited so that it's propulsive, and things that were sort of tangents were taken out and sort of really focused and trimmed down, and so that it becomes this driving, it's a vigilante, dark crime thriller. And we did a campaign on Kickstarter so that I could raise money to get an audiobook done and do an exclusive hardcover. But now we're pivoting, and it's going up on Amazon. So this is a legacy project for us. I'm really enjoyed working with him on it. This is it. This is his last.
That's amazing. Amazing. So, I had my mom at it, and I remember walking in and seeing her, and she knew who it was. I was down something over his but who knew?
Yeah, my husband's not there yet. He knows who I am, and he can appreciate what's happening with his novel now. But I realize they're going to come and get it.
That's cool. Yeah, that's very cool.
I think, like, I would have not been able to do this before I was a published novel, because I would have not even known where to start. But I think such a community of people, like going to BoucherCon and finding Nick Tiarchis, there's such a community of people that are willing to help. I mean, I think crime novelists and mystery and murder novelists are probably the nicest people you will meet, because they get shit out, like through this.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like it takes a village, and I had people who stepped up and blurbed the book. I had, consultants who helped me get it up on Kickstarter. The woman who narrates my audiobook, she is managing the production of the audiobook, taking one more thing off my plate. We found a great narrator, so that'll probably come out in September. But yeah, I mean, as I was saying, man, I gravitate to mystery novels, crime novels, whodunits, detective. I grew up reading Agatha Christie and P.D. James, and I love Kate Atkinson, the Jackson Brodie says. I always loved British detective novels,
right?
And so maybe mine sort of have that sensibility to them. But yeah,
but this is about to find. I'm on a panel for what you read as a kid to the portfolio what you write about. And I'm like, I'm probably the worst person in the world to get on that panel, because I didn't read that much. I was a very poor reader. But I didn't read, read a lot of National Geographic. I read a lot of Five Life of War books they had on World War II, all about that. Then as I got older, I read that. But I'm like, I didn't look back, but I'm probably not the best person. Then I saw said, what movies did I could go there? No, what I could talk about.
So now I'm on 2 panels at BoucherCon, and the first one is called Silent in the Library, and you're supposed to talk about your favorite librarian sleuth. And I'm like, wait, what?
Hey, sleuth? I'll read the librarians from Seinfeld.
It's so funny, right? Oh my God. Well,
Meet your boat. The second boat. The library.
I'm currently reading a book about an English teacher, a mystery, and the protagonist is an English teacher, and I think that's library adjacent. Like I think librarian adjacent, but I have read books about libraries. The Library Book by Susan Orlean, which is about the arson at the LA Library. I mean, that's true crime. I just read Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. So, and I think this discussion can be a conversation about the how the banning of books is impacting libraries and librarians. So I can talk around the subject. And so I was thinking about like contacting them and saying, I don't know if I can speak to this subject, but I think I can. And then I'm on another panel on the last day at 8:00 in the morning called Jack the Ripper. So that one makes sense. That is a panel about serial killers. Right.
Yes. That makes sense. Yeah, I was there talking about banning books. Well, I'm a fan of there's a lot of banning, especially in appropriate content with kids. But of some sort. But what? So when you're not writing, you but just leaving for crime scenes. What?
When I'm not writing, well, these days I am now a caregiver.
That's the full time. You know what?
Anytime.
That's even a better job, and that's very admirable of you to do that. So that's all to you.
Thank you. It's for anybody. I can't say I'm really great at it. Hopefully I'm getting better. Hopefully I'm becoming a more patient person. But it is very, very hard. I don't think people realize how hard it is.
Oh, yeah.
So yes, but when I'm not, when I'm not writing, I'm generally marketing my books. Right? I'm on.
That's a whole topic right here about marketing books. I don't care if you're published, self-published, traditional published, or hybrid published. If you don't market your books, nobody will.
And it runs the gamut. It means understanding how to run Facebook and Amazon ads, being present on social media, deciding which social media platforms are working for you. And I've tested them all. I mean, I'm on TikTok. I just can't bring myself to do anything. I'm on Instagram the most. Like I find that I really enjoy that. It's a visual.
The best.
Yeah, I like making the graphics for it and engaging on that platform, but Twitter has become somewhat strange, and Threads is nice, and TikTok, I'm there once in a while, and it's hard though. I mean, I get the most bang for my buck if I'm just doing advertising where I'm nobody, just ads going up on Facebook and Amazon.
Yeah, that'll do. There's bands that'll do
no,
this.
I don't do ads.
I like that whole Amazon. I knew some above, and on Amazon, of course, some of the ads, for the ebook or whatever. But yeah, that's the hardest thing. Facebook, if I like that, this is the whole adulthood people develop it. Or because the algorithm with the things, right?
If my book goes on sale, especially if my book goes on sale, I'm going to do Facebook advertising. That definitely drives sales.
Yes.
So about it. Or use written word. They have the email newsletters that they send out to people to let them know that there's a price drop on your book. But if you if you self-publish, you have the ability to go in there and price drops, right?
Oh yeah.
I live by my publisher and our club distributor make that decision. So I don't really have a say in it. I could say, look, I really would like a price drop on the first 2 books in the series, especially, so that people can get into the series, and I can drive that. So there was discussion about that, but a self-publisher has more control on doing price drops and then doing advertising, which I think does work. I mean, we have a marketing plan for the 13th Step because it's being published solely on Amazon. I feel like I have a ton of control.
But you still put it on email. You something about being impressed to the old individual and the media outside Amazon.
If all things were not the way it is, he probably would have used his agent and gotten a publishing deal. But I used Ingram when I did Kickstarter, and I thought they did a beautiful job with the books, and I saw all the ways that you can drive through. But I think in Lou's particular case, just being on Amazon, keeping it simple, using it just was the way to go. So like looking at everything and the situation. And I think that's what authors need to do. They need to decide what is the goal? Is the goal to be in bookstores? Is the goal to try to go out, or is the goal to really drive? I mean, Amazon is unfortunately, it is the elephant in the room. It is. I mean, if you're gonna, you're gonna drive sales just being on there and doing some really strategic thing on a single platform. Whereas if you start to sort of decide you want to do all these different things, you've got to be in all those places. I mean, so with this, it was a no-brainer. A singular decision to get his books out on Amazon and just stay focused there, especially because I'm doing it.
Right. Yeah. I knew the podcast from a marketing perspective, but to be able to get back to the community or people that want to ride or I'll talk all the time. But there's plenty of podcasts out there that if you haven't sold 500,000 books when we're top tier, which is a shame, because I talk to people that maybe have sold one book, up to people that have sold millions of books, and I just lateral pipe, and it's hard for me to get on other people's podcasts, and I've interviewed.
I think every author has a story to tell that's of value, because everyone's going through this, even at the stages where you're trying to make it happen and it hasn't happened yet. I'm not a best-selling author. I'm a mid-list author. What's my goal? Maybe
I'm a listed author.
But
I'm a slow burner.
I love writing. It was sort of a bucket list thing. And actually how it happened was, after I read that story about Flora Stevens and I was like going nuts over it, I got laid off. And my husband said to me, so this is this is like in I think it was like 2017. I have to look back. I have to look at LinkedIn. I never remember my own CV. I got to go on LinkedIn and like, what was I doing in 2016?
They forget to I'm on it. They say, how many times have you reinvented yourself? And I take it as a compliment.
A lot.
I take it as a compliment. Because you can, whatever you've learned, adapt it to something else.
Right. I mean, so I got laid off. It was like right before the summer. And then I had the summer off in like, a million years since I was like a teenager. Right. And my husband said, and I was complaining about being bored. He's like, why don't you write the novel that you've been saying you wanted to write for the last 20 years?
There you go.
Like, okay, I'm going to give that a try. And so that started that. And as I sat down to do it, I was like, this is fun. Okay, and again, I'm a pantser. I didn't plan anything.
Not outline at all. I know the ending, normally. I got that in the beginning, just right. If I get them in daily just right, it's easy, because I only have a penny in mind. Wow. And
I'm the same way. I might have, my ending is not just like one answer. It's not just one reveal. There are generally 2 or 3 reveals. Yeah. So I generally know one of them. I know in the Disappearance of Trudy Solomon, I actually changed one of them at the end after the developmental edit with my publisher. She wanted me to rethink one of the 2 endings. And I was like, oh, okay. And it turned out to be a way better book based on just sort of brainstorming a different way to wrap up one of the storylines. So like, I don't go in with like, just saying, oh, it's going to be this way. Things change as you're writing. Things change. Your character doesn't be like, oh, that's really cool. I'm just going to keep going with that. Yeah.
The weapon for started. I thought this is strong. He has just like occasions of information about character. Like he details to of an infinite amount of characteristics. Like I tell people, my book before the main character. I go characteristics. Do you know more about the invisible hand than you do about the character? If I have to maintain an identity of the unknown, out of respect for the soldier and the dignity of the soldier.
That's interesting. So that's a good reason to go into a novel, not knowing that because you want that to come across. I mean,
Yeah.
the one thing, I mean, what I do know about my characters when I go into it is what I want to know more than anything is their flaw, because that flaw will drive their challenges to make whatever it is they're trying to happen. The flaw will always get in
Yeah.
the way. So
Yeah.
I need the flaw to be pretty clear to me at the beginning, and then all of a sudden I begin to, as I write, I'll begin to kind of see the other side of the person come out. So
Yeah, they're both physical characteristics. So definitely
and it's true.
personality.
Yeah. So that's
And
true.
how it evolves. How it evolves over time or
Yeah. And the whole idea is that your character is growing or changing in some way by the end of
yes.
the book. So I don't want to be too, again, just like plotting, I just don't want to be kind of, I feel hemmed in if I know too much going into it. But it's worked for me. I am saying this does not work for everyone. When I tell people my process and they're like, oh my God, you write these complex plots, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know.
Well, people don't always know that process. I mean, it was, novels are mere to form when they fade, based on the line in the diary. Through that person could be lines to stay, or line and tune in the 2-year-old. So I want them to figure out their spiritual, pathetic, whatever they want. And format, I think, and can say who is it. I would even enjoy it. You can talk to me and tell you, I cannot tell you who he is.
That's really interesting. That's a fun way to go into a novel. It's sort of this very clean slate, and so the reader is really sort of charged with kind of filling in the blanks.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
how his writings move a falling sun were strange. Just discover the Bible in the Bible in facts. And how they for reading it and come together into family because the son realizes that his dad, combat veteran, has issues, which makes him who he is. The dog had said that and bounds him back. But my wife and I, we went to France and Germany this year and read the book. We went to all the places in the book. I actually gave a book to a bookstore in the book.
That's cool. I went to Woodstock. I went to Woodstock last weekend or 2 weekends ago. I can't even remember. Like every week.
Oh yeah.
2 weekends ago, I went up to Yazga's farm. I went up to the Bethel Woods Center of the Arts, where Woodstock.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll be there.
Right. I wanted to take photographs and do video, as kind of thinking about ways that I can market the book. And so we went up there, and I had such a great time. It was a beautiful day, and I mean, I bought 1960s vintage clothing that I plan to wear to the bookstore.
Let's show it back. You better keep it. Show it back.
I did.
I wish I kept my alcohol. Oh my goodness, tell me. Maybe I shoot on toes. I'm rich.
Yeah, everything comes back around.
Of course.
Comes back around. But yeah, so I got a lot of like 60s fashion to wear at my bookstore events.
Oh, that's cool. You're a character.
So just I have
grateful.
On so my book release event on August 13th is at the Mysterious Bookshop. And I'm in conversation with Sarah DeVillo, Broadway Butterfly, and I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, so I'll be wearing my 60s clothing.
Well, now you're gonna say, "Dang man, that's groovy." I mean, you gotta start speaking of the language of the hippies, but.
I do these all with my social media posts, and I'm hoping it doesn't come across goofy, but I don't think it does. It's not like anybody said,
Oh, you should bring the soundtrack from Woodstock and play it in lightly in the background.
I did, so I have it in my video. So the woman who's here with me who is videotaping everything, she's got the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young version of Woodstock playing as I'm talking. And I was so singing, and I'm like, well, I can kind of sing. I'm not a terrible singer. I'm just not a great singer.
Well, you sound like Joe Clark reading hello. Or hello. Well, Marcy, it's been a pleasure. So let's see your most of you. Your most. Do you all at one time?
All at one time. Let's see.
All at one time.
Hey.
Oh, it's not have arms.
I
Give me that, folks.
I'm trying to put them in order.
Okay.
But I can't tell on the screen if it's going left to right or right to left. But
It flies. We can wrap a level up.
that's
Awesome.
my
Love
baby.
your voters.
My baby.
Line coverage. Love your voters. So what party ever guidance or what literally holy you read?
Oh my God. So my website is marcymccreary.com. I'm mostly on Instagram. That's where I like to engage. And I'm Marcy McCreary I'm at Marcy McCreary author. On
I'll
Facebook,
call you. I don't think I'll call you. I'll
Marcy
call you.
McCreary writes. And on Twitter, because I signed up for Twitter like the year it came out, I'm McMarcy, Nick Marcy. Right.
Okay.
I never changed it. That's my weird handle. And McCreary is my married name, obviously, because Lou McCreary is.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm plugging his book too. So
Facebook. Well, you should. You should. But you're remarkable in one for writing what you do. If two, taking care of your husband, which folks, if I'm glad 99% or 90% of everybody over time has been impacted by some type of, I have a friend of mine who's 61, and has had Alzheimer's for the last 2 or 3 years, and it's absolutely devastating.
it's
So,
devastating.
she's worth doing that for a living, but I believe she can may not say it, and it does.
Yeah.
So, anyway, folks, check your book out, all the books, and your husband's, by the way, and let's see what we can do. But, okay, thank you very much, Marcy, for stopping by. I'll let that and talk to you today.
Thank you, Travis, for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you. Bye.